Welcome, welcome, welcome to Algebra 2 Calculator Lab video, which is called Linear Regressions. I'm Miss Lisa. You should like, share, and subscribe to my channel. I want more subscribers because YouTube doesn't let me do YouTube Live because I don't have enough subscribers, like the way I used to do Facebook Live, those of you who have had me as a tutor teacher before. So anyway, but we're doing pretty good, but still not enough for them to allow me to do YouTube Live. So this is probably the most important Calculator Lab video you will watch, because this is just a brilliant thing that you can use your calculator to do all kinds of problems for you, that the other way to do it is much, much harder. All right? Now, so first of all, I'm going to show you the way the book teaches it, which is when you would use this thing called linear regression, when you would use it if you had a certain amount of scientific data and you wanted to find the line that best fits through the points. But in all my years of teaching science and math, and it's been decades, and we won't talk about how many, I have only assigned this to students in science class once to do a linear regression to get the line, and it was in physics class last year. But usually, we use computers now to do this, so we don't really use our calculators much. So, how the book teaches you to do it is not very useful for, but it is a great skill to use on other problems, and I'm going to show you those. All right, so this is called a linear regression, and we have a certain amount of data here, and we're going to put in the top line for our x's and the bottom line for our y's into our calculator. So this will work with a TI probably 82, 83, or 84, but I have an 84. We were doing matrices in Algebra 1. I'm going to clear those out because that's not what we're doing. We're going to go here to this button that says Stat. Sounds like they're in a hurry. Stat. And we're going to start with doing Edit, so we can hit Enter or 1. Either one, it will select it. And we are going to put data. We're going to put the X is in for list 1 and the Y is in for list 2. Now, a couple of things here. If you have data already there, you can delete it, but be real careful, because if you go all the way up to the top and hit delete, it will get rid of the whole column. And you can get it back, but it's a pain. It's better to never delete it in the first place, okay? The second thing, though, is you don't really have to delete the stuff that you can write over it unless you have more data in here than what you're putting in. Then you'll need to delete it. But I don't have any data, so I'm going to start putting it in. So my first point is 1. I just hit 1. And notice it puts it down here, and then when I hit Enter, it pops it into it. Okay, so then my next one is 4, 5. Okay, and so usually I'm doing this with students here, and they're always faster at this than I am. I'm sitting here putting in my little data, and I look up, and they're all looking at me like, okay, Miss Blackburn, hurry up, show us how to do this. So that's 18, 21, and yep, and y'all are going, yep, she's slow. 25, 29. All right, I got the data in there. My 29's not there. I have to hit Enter. Okay, so I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Do I have 11? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I think I got 11. We'll see. If I get the wrong answer, that's where I did it. Okay, now I'm going to use my arrows and go over here and put in the Y's. 8, 10, 13, 15, 18. If you're watching along at home and you're doing this class, go ahead and put in your data now too. And if you're not taking this class, oops, that's way too much. So look, I put in too many here, so I'm going to arrow over to the second 5 and hit delete. So it just says what's supposed to, which is 25. Let's go in a little bit more. So 18 is 25, yep. Okay, so the next one is 29. Anyway, you should be putting this in too and practicing this. You can pause the video and make sure you've got it. All right, so at least I got the same number of things, so that's pretty good. All right, so there is my data all in, and so I want to quit. I want to get off this. I say second mode. See how it says quit? That's how you back out of everything. I go back to stat, and this time I want to calculate. So I'm going to use my arrows and go over to calculate, and I'm going to pick what I want to do is number 4, a linear regression. I can either arrow down and hit enter, or I could hit number 4 and pick linear regression. Now it asks me, do I want the x's to be list 1? Do I want the y's to be list 2? And yes I do. Why, thank you, I will. And I arrow down to calculate and hit enter. And now it tells me, and it's telling me in slope-intercept form, but instead of saying y equals mx plus b, they use ax. And they tell me that a is 0.94 bunch of numbers, and b is 0.77. So if I wanted this to write this down, this equation would be y equals 0.94x plus 7.7 or so. And if you look over here, that is the same numbers they got here. Now, if there is an R value, what that R is, the closer that R value is to 1, the better your data fits a line. Imagine if you're putting in your data and it's not really a line, it's a parabola or something like that. The R value would tell it. Now notice that this is my son Joshua's calculator. It doesn't have the R value. I'll show you how to turn it on in a second, and I'll turn it on his. Okay, so I would write down this equation, and now if I wanted to graph it, I go over to y equals, and I can put it in. So it was we'll say 94, and then this is the button for x. See how it's got xt, circle with a line through it, in, okay, 0.94, and then it would be x plus, and then my b was about 7.7. And now if I push the button graph, now I could have a bad window, but I like to just gamble and go for it and see how my window is. It's a good window. There it is. Now I could want my points on here too. If I want my points on here too, then I do second y equals. See how it says stat plot? See how it's off? I hit enter, and I'm going to turn it on. I hit enter again. I want it to be in little dots. I want it to come from list 1 and list 2. Those little dots look nice, and I'm going to have it be blue. I could change the color too, but blue looks good to me. So I'm just going to say enter, and now I'm going to go back to graph, and my window is a little too small. I'm going to fix my window some. Notice how I don't have any negative numbers. I'm going to make my window bigger up here. So I'm going to go to window. My x minimum, I'm going to change it to 0 because I don't want any negative numbers. My x maximum, I'm going to make 100. Let's make sure that I can see this thing. The y minimum, I'm going to make it 0 because there were no negative numbers. And for y maximum, I'm going to make it 100 because I'm just going to make it big. I'm going to graph it again, and it was really too big. But you can see that the line is kind of going through those points. All right, so that's what your book shows you to do with this. And you're going to do number 1 for homework. But what I want to show you is something different. And it's what this is really great for. First of all, I want to change my window. I don't want it to stay there. So I want a good normal window. So I'm going to say zoom standard, which is number 6. And I'm going to put my window back there. I'm going to go back to my calculator. I've got too confused. I've gone too fast for it, and it's trying to draw the line, and it's not liking it. Well, let's see if I turn it off and turn it back on again. Now I can do it. All right, that's always the thing in technology. So I went back to second y equals, and I'm going to turn that back off again. I don't want that stat plot on, so I'm going to arrow over and hit enter, and now it's off. And now I'm going to quit out of it. I'm going to do second mode and quit out of it. Now, what I want to do is I want to show you what this is really good for. Because in real life, that is not what you want to use this for. What you can use it for is just, it can cheat for you, but it's allowed. It's allowed on the SAT. It's allowed in college. It's allowed in most math classes, so it's not really cheating. But there is a whole host of problems that this can do for you. Okay, so I turned back in the book to page 75, and it was saying that you have 2 points and they want to know the slope of the line. So normally you would do that problem, right? Well, we can make our calculator do it instead using this. We're going to go back to stat, we're going to go back to edit, and this time I am going to delete everything out of it. So I'm going to go delete down, delete down, delete down. And this is more fun with sound effects. Boop, 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 boop. You feel like you're like, playing Space Invaders or something. Okay, I got rid of all of those. And the reason why I'm deleting, when I told you don't have to delete, you can write over it, is because we have a lot more data than we're going to have in our real problem. So I'm having to delete this out. All right, now I've deleted it. Now, what I'm going to do this problem is I'm going to make the x's list 1. So I'm going to put in -3 and 2. So I'm going to arrow back over here and do -3, 2. Okay, now I'm going to arrow over here and I'm going to put in the other one, the y's, 5, 1. So 5, 1. You just got to make sure you have them in order, but notice, all we need are 2 pieces of data and we can make it give us our line. So now I'm going to go back to stat. I'm going to go over to calculate. I'm going to go down to linear regression, and I'm going to tell it that I want my line. So I put it in there, and there it is. And my slope is -0.8. So it gave me that. Now, you're like, but the book has the answer is a fraction. So it doesn't seem too useful, but it is. So my slope is A. It just gave it to me without me having to do any math. And I'm just going to remember that number, -0.8. I'm going to quit out of this, and I'm going to go to my regular math screen, and I'm going to put it in. Oops, I need to put my negative first. Let's delete that. -0.8. Do you see how I put that number in? I'm going to hit enter. And now I'm going to go to this button that says math, which I think is funny because aren't they all math? So it's ironic. And I'm going to select it. And my first choice is turn it into a fraction. That's what arrow frac means. I'm going to hit enter, and dun. There is the slope without me doing any math. Oh, you just don't know how beautiful that is unless you've done 100 slope problems and got real tired of it, okay? So here's another one. This one is, once again, you're given slope, and you're supposed to tell whether it is positive, negative, 0, or undefined slope. Well, with just 2 points, I can get the line, and then once I get the line, I can graph it, and then I'll know, because I can write down the A and the B, and that gives me my line. So let's go back and do that. Let's go back to stat. Let's go back to, that's not what I want. Let's go back to stat. Let's go back to calculate. Let's go back down to linear regression. And let's write down this equation that we're going to get. Okay, so it is y equals -0.8x plus 2.6. Now, I can use my calculator and turn them into fractions, but I don't need to. I'm going to go to y equals. I'm going to clear out what's in there with the clear button, and I'm going to put this equation in. -0.8x plus 2.6. Now I'm going to hit graph, and I can see that it is a negative slope. Now, of course, we know that because it was negative anyway. All right, but anyway, it's beautiful. Even if it was one where you're trying to figure out if it's parallel or perpendicular, you would be able to get that equation. But I'm going to show you that on another page. Okay, so here we are given, write the equation of the line shown, and look at all this that they did. But here they looked at what the y-intercept is, that's -1, and they looked at the slope, and they were able to write it. But you could have also have gotten the equation from having the 2 points. We could have put in 0, -1, and then realized that this is at 2, 2, and we could have also gotten that slope using a linear regression, because sometimes it's hard to tell. Okay, so here is one. Write the equation of a line that passes through this point and has this slope. Now, slope is rise over run, so we can just do this math to these and figure out what another set of points are, and we can do our linear regression. So here we have, this is x, and that is y. And this is rise over run, that's y, and that's x, and it's telling us what to do. So to our x, we're going to add 2 and make it 2 plus 2 is 4, because that was a positive 2. And to our y, I'm putting the negative with the y. I'm going to say 3 minus 1 is 2. And now I have a second set of points, and I can use linear regression to do my math for me. So I'm going to go back to stat, I'm going to go back to edit, and I'm going to just write over, since it's the same number of points. One of my x's is 2. See how it's at the bottom? I hit enter, and it pops it up top. And my other x is 4. Now I'm going to arrow over and up, and my first y was 3, and my second y is 2. Now that's in there. Now I go back to stat, I go over to calculate, I go down to linear regression, I go down and tell it to calculate, and done. I know that the equation of this line is y equals, and I know that that's -1/2 x plus 4. And look in the book, -1/2 x plus 4. Now, if you didn't know that -0.5 was -1/2, you could use your calculator and make it do it for you. Okay? So now, like this one, it says, write an equation that passes through this point and is perpendicular and then parallel to this line. Well, if it's perpendicular, you take the slope and you flip it and change the sign. So my slope is going to be positive 1/3, and if it's parallel, it's the same. So that's -3 over 1. There's an understood 1. So that is so much easier than doing that math. That math is a pain. See how it's got 2 parts to it. It's so easy to just put the points in your calculator. Here's another one. And this math is a pain too. It says write the equation that passes through these 2 points. All you have to do is put them in your calculator, do a linear regression, and it will do it for you. All that math you get to skip. I feel a little guilty showing you this. It's so easy. So here you're given a slope and the y-intercept. So that means for the y-intercept, that means that point here is, that means that x is 0, y is -3. And then we can use the slope. The slope is 5 over 1, and that's y over x. So to our x, we add 1 to get our second point. 0 plus 1 is 1. And to our y, we do -3 minus 5 is 2. There's our 2 points. We put it in our calculator, and we could have gotten an equation from that. Now, this one, they just wanted you to write it, and you could do that just because they tell you the slope and they tell you the y-intercept. But sometimes you don't have all of that, and I just wanted you to see that the way you can think about this is you can always, if you've got a slope, or if you've got a y-intercept, or if you have points, or if you have that it's perpendicular or parallel, and you can translate that information to 2 points and do a linear regression, you have a very easy way to get a line. So like here, there's 2 points, put them in, put in 8 and 11 for list 1, 5 and 14 for list 2, and you can get that equation just using your calculator, not doing any math. Now, what about if your teacher says show work? Oh, we hate that, don't we? Well, then it's still useful because you're going to have these questions on the test in Algebra 2 and in college, and even Algebra 1 does these problems. And you can use your calculator through a linear regression to check your work. So even when you have to show work, it's not quite as wonderful because you can't just put it in your calculator and give them the answer. But at least you can use your calculator to check your work and make sure you did it right. And that's worth a lot. If you're in college doing a test and you can check your work before you turn it in using your calculator, that's awesome to know that you've got that problem right already when you turn in that paper. All right, so this is one of my favorite things your calculator will do. Not for this, but for all those problems I just showed you, how it will solve them for you. So use it all the time. If you don't use it, you won't remember it. So use it every time you have one of these problems, at least to check, if not to do the problem. All right, see you later. Math is great.